Okay, listen. Last class we have studied about what are the various operating system structures. See, at the same time, what is a system boot? See, what is a system debugging, and what are the basic concepts of process. See, all the topics we have studied in earlier classes. See, among the structures of operating systems, we have majorly simple structure and layered structure, monolithic, microkernel, and module based structures. All these are the various structures of operating system. At the same time, we have seen the basic concepts of process. See, what is a process and what are the various states of process. Okay. See, if we take a process during the lifetime of its process, it varies various states. That means new, ready, running, like that. Okay. See, we have totally various states of processes. Okay. See, now in this class we are going to study about the process scheduling. See, what is a process scheduling and what are the various operations of process, and at the same time what is inter-process communication, IPC mechanisms. See, all these topics we are going to discuss in this class. Okay. The major topics now we are going to discuss is, first one is process scheduling. See, how we are going to schedule a process for execution, and next one is what are the various operations of process, and the next one is IPC mechanism, that is inter process communication mechanisms. Okay. See, next if you see the process definition. See, we have seen a process may consist of text section as well as data section as well as heap section and stack section. Okay, these are the four sections. If you take a process, we have totally four sections. Okay, all these sections we have studied in previous class. Okay, next one, whereas coming to process states. Okay, we have studied in depth of the process states, various states of process in last class also. See, we have new state, a ready state, a running state, and a terminate and a waiting. Okay, simply new means a process creation, whereas ready means it is ready for execution. The next one is running means a process is executed by the processor. Okay, running means a process is executed by the processor. Next, after completion of the execution, it will go for termination. Or if a process running, when it requires IO devices, it will come for a waiting state, and then after completion of IO devices, again go for ready state, again from ready to running. Okay, this is the life cycle of the process states. Okay, next we have seen what is a process control block. Okay, so each process is presented by a process control block. See, what are the various elements in the process block are process states and the program counter, CPU register, and memory management information. All these are the various contents comes under process control block. Okay, up to now we have studied in previous class. Now today's focus is mainly regarding process scheduling. Okay, if we know the process states, then automatically we can easily learn the process scheduling. Okay, if we have some basic idea about process states, see, already we have seen the various states of process. If we have some basic idea on those states, so it is very easy to understand the process scheduling. Okay, see, process scheduling means how a process is going to be executed. Okay, see, here process scheduling is nothing but how a process is going to be executed by the processor or CPU. Here CPU or processor both are same. Okay, before going to see that, generally there are two main objectives of the process scheduling are, first one is CPU busy at all times, and next one is deliver acceptable response time for all programs. There are majorly two objectives of the process scheduling. See, first one is CPU always busy. That means the processor is always busy with executing some of the process. Okay, first one is CPU busy all times. It means CPU means here the processor. The processor is busy with executing some process. Okay, this is one of the main objective of this process scheduling. And the second one is deliver acceptable response time. That means if all programs, for example, there are n number of programs, for n number of programs, that program should be executed by the CPU successfully. Okay, so here deliver acceptable response time for all programs means whenever we give one program, one process to the processor, that processor should execute that process effective manner. Okay, so these two are the main objectives of the process scheduling. See, if you see here one representation, here there are in waiting queue there are some processes are there here under this one, here P4, P5 like this. Here the major thing is here we have ready queue is there. Okay, see how the process is going to be executed is here we have running state. That means first of all we are giving process P0 to the running state. Okay, initially all the processes is at waiting state. Okay, from waiting to ready state. That means the process which are created are in initially ready queue. That means whenever the process is created, all the processes are in ready queue. For example, process P1 is created, that process P1 is going to be ready queue. Next P2, P3 like that. Okay, for example, process here running means first of all process P0 is created, that will come to ready queue. Here ready queue. Okay, so that P0 process is given to running state. It means it is executed by the processor. Okay, see after completion of P0, so if it does not require any IO devices, so it will terminate. That means it will complete its execution. Or for example, if process P1 is executing by the processor, if it requires any IO devices, and it will come for waiting state. Okay, so here the overall states of a process we are going to represent here. See here ready queue in the sense the processes which are created and ready for the execution. Here P0, P1, P2, P3 like that. First of all we are giving P0 to the running state. That means P0, we are giving P0 to the processor. Okay, after executing P0 it will terminate. That means a terminated state, that is completed its execution. Next we are giving P1 process P1 to the running state. That means running state in the sense we are giving P1 to the processor. Okay, for example, if P1 requires any IO devices, and it will come to the waiting state. Okay, here the major thing is the processes which are created that are in ready queue. Okay, from ready queue to running state, the process which are executed by the processor is nothing but running state. See here the process which are executed by the processor, it requires some IO devices, it will come to waiting state. Okay, so after getting the IO devices, it will go for the execution. That means it will go to the ready queue, from ready to running. Okay, so this is the representation of the diagram or diagrammatical representation of the process scheduling. Okay, next one is here we have whenever we are talking about the process scheduling, there are majorly 3 queues are there in order to store the processes. Okay, the major thing is job queue. Here totally we have 3 queues are there. First one is job queue, and the second one is ready queue, and finally we have device queue. Okay, in order to maintain the process, we are going to use 3 queues. First one is job queue, second one is ready queue, and the third one is device queue. See what is a job queue, why it requires. Next, what is a ready queue, why it requires, and what is a device queue, why it requires. Okay, simply if you take process will if you see this diagram, previous diagram, Here major is process creation is ready queue, and process execution is running. If your process is require any IO device, it is waiting state. Okay, here we are talking about three queues, that is job queue, ready queue, and a device queue. Okay, see what is meant by job queue. As process enters the system, they are put in a job queue which consists of all the process in the system. It means whenever one process is created, okay, for example, there are 10 processes is created for execution. All those 10 processes one by one they will put in one queue called as job queue. Here job queue means the processes which are created. Those processes we are going to kept in one place, that is one queue. Those are we can call it as a job queue. See what is meant by job queue. Job queue is nothing but it contains the processes which are created. All the created processes will come to the job queue for execution. See, this is nothing but job queue. Next, what is the ready queue? Okay, see what is meant by ready queue. After coming to the job queue, all the processes are now in job queue. Okay, see after job queue, in job queue we have so many processes are there. The processes not yet started the execution. Okay, so if the process is going to be executed means it will move to the ready state. Okay, na? So it means all the processes that are that is going to be executed, okay, that are put in a ready queue. Ready queue means the processes which are ready for the execution. All the created processes are in job queue, whereas the processes which are ready for the execution, all the processes are in ready queue. That means here the processes that are residing in main memory and are ready and waiting to execute are kept in a list called ready queue. Here, for example, in job queue, we have P0 process, P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. Totally, in job queue, totally 5 processes is there. Assume that 5 processes is there. Okay, first one is P0, P1, P2, P3, P4 and P5. Totally P0 to P5, 6 processes there. So, all the 6 processes initially are kept in job queue. Okay, see what is the ready queue? The process which are ready for execution will come to the ready queue. That means initially which process we are creating? P0. That means the process P0 is waiting for execution. That means the process P0 will come from job queue to the ready queue. Then after P0, P1. Next P1, after P1, P2. Next after P2, next P3. Like that. Okay. The created processes are in job queue. The processes which are waiting to execute, all the processes were kept in one queue. All those are, we can call it as a ready queue. Okay. See here, ready queue header contain pointers to the first and final PCB. As we know that PCB is process control block. Okay, we have a link for each and every process control block. Okay, so at the same time, what about this device queue? Okay, what about this device queue? See, generally, if a process is executing, that means a running state. Running state means a process is executed by the processor. Okay, that process requires some IO devices. Definitely, for IO devices, it will come to the waiting state. Okay, na? So the processes which are waiting for a particular IO devices, we can call it as a device queue. Okay, see what is meant by device queue? The processes which are waiting for a IO device. When it requires IO device, initially the process in job queue. After job queue, it will come to the ready queue. After ready queue, it will go for the execution, that is running. While a process is running, if it requires any IO devices, it will come to the waiting state. Okay, so the processes which are waiting for IO devices, we can keep all the processes one queue, that is a device queue. Okay, totally we have 3 queues are there. First one is job queue, ready queue, and next one is device queue. Okay, and next representation of process scheduling. See, here we are going to discuss about the process states only, but the representation was different. That is in terms of process scheduling. Okay, when we are talking about the process states, completely we are going to talk about the process states only. That is new, ready, running, terminated, and IO and waiting state, like that. Here, this is the process scheduling representation. Here, what will happen is, initially all the processes which are created will come to the ready queue. Here, the ready queue means the process which is going to be executed by the CPU. Here, CPU means processor. Here, CPU means processor. Processor and CPU both are similar. Okay, initially the processes are created, all the processes are created or kept in job queue. See here, job queue. Okay, then all the processes, here we have job queue. Okay, initially, see, after job queue all the processes will come to the ready queue. Ready queue means, in ready queue what we have, the processes which are ready for the execution. All those processes were in ready queue. Okay, see here, in ready queue, from ready queue the processors the process will go to the CPU. Okay, after completion of execution of a particular process by the processor, and then it will go for end. This is one way. Okay, next one is, here the in ready queue we have some processes. Okay, although for example particular process is running by the CPU. Okay, whenever that particular process is running, that particular process requires IO devices, then automatically it will come to the IO state. Okay, after getting the IO devices, it will go to the ready queue. Okay, next, this is second case. Next, one more case is, for example, if a process which are in ready queue, okay, that process will go for execution. That is, the CPU is executing the particular process. While it executing, there is one more process with highest priority will came to the ready queue from the job queue. See here, we are not mentioning the job queue. Okay, before ready queue we have job queue. Okay, all the processes are in job queue. From the job queue only we are going to get the processes to ready queue. Okay, now the third case is, what we are going to say is, here the processes which are executing by the processor. For example, particular process is executing by the processor. At that time there is one more process with highest priority came from job queue to ready queue. Definitely highest priority means we have to execute that process immediately. So here already one process is running, that means CPU is executing one process. At that time what will happen is, the CPU will give the chance to the highest priority process. That means the CPU scheduler will move the highest priority process from ready queue to the CPU. At that time the process which are executed by the CPU will swap out and move into the ready queue. That means we can say it is a partially executed swapped out processes. It means whenever the particular whenever a process is executed by the CPU, whenever it is executing, there is one more process with highest priority will came into the ready queue. Then automatically what will happen is, the process which is running, that means which is executed by the CPU, that process will swap out. Again it will swap into the ready queue. Okay, those process we can call it as a partially swapped out process. It means partially executed swapped out processes means the processes which are partially executed and came to the ready queue for giving chance to the highest priority process. Okay, here one more thing is, here we are know about the context switching. See, what is meant by context switching means, the process which is moving from running state to the ready queue, we can call it as a context switching. See, switching is nothing but moving from actually ready queue, in the sense it is a ready state. Ready queue in the sense it is a ready state. Okay, so what is meant by context switching? Context switching is nothing but moving the process from running state to the ready queue, that means ready state. Why we are moving? Why? Because the here whenever one process is executing, there is one more process will came with the highest priority. For that one, the process which are executing already, it will save up to that. Again it will go for the ready queue. Okay, whenever that saved process again come to the CPU, and at that time it will resume its continuation. That means for example, a process is executed, whenever one process is executing in the executed by the CPU. Okay, for example, 50% of its execution is completed. Okay, after that there is one more process with highest priority came to ready queue. Okay, what will happen here? There is already CPU executing one process. That process is completed 50% of execution. Here what will happen is the process save that 50% of execution, and the process will move to the ready queue. Why? Because here highest priority process will come na. So here what will happen is the highest priority process will allocated by the processor, that is CPU, and it will execute and it will terminate. Then what will happen is the process already 50% is executed or in ready queue. At that time what will happen is the 50% executed process again it will came to the CPU, that is processor. Again it will continue its execution. That means again it will complete 50% of the execution. That is nothing but context switching. Okay, context switching is nothing but moving a processor from CPU to the ready queue. Okay, that means we can say that context switching is nothing but whenever one process is executing by the processor, okay, there is one more process will came with the highest priority, then automatically it will save its continuation. Okay, again it will go to the ready queue. Again next after that, after it comes to the CPU, it will resume its execution. That we can call it as a context switching. Okay, so this is the process scheduling representation. Next one is, so this is just now we have studied about the context switching. Okay, see, when we are going to this context switching is nothing but if there is a interrupt occurs. See here when an interrupt occurs, see what is meant by interrupt. Interrupt is nothing but whenever one process is executed by the CPU, there is one more process with highest priority. It is nothing but interrupt. Interrupt is nothing but just like as a interruption. Okay, the system need to save the current context of process running on CPU. Okay, just now we have said that thing only. Okay, whenever an interrupt occurs, that means when a process with highest priority came, the system need to save the current context of the process running. That means, for example, 60% of the process execution is completed. Up to now, that process is saved. Okay, on the CPU, so that it can restore. Restore in the sense again it will come for the execution. It will continue its execution only. Okay, so this is nothing but context switching. Okay, next one is we are going to talk about in this process scheduling only. We are going to talk about the schedulers. Okay, there are generally basically two types of schedulers are there. Okay, see, first one is long term scheduler and second one is short term scheduler. Okay, here we have job pool. Job pool means the job is nothing but process. Job pool means process pool. It means the processes which are created. We can say it is job queue. We can say it is a job queue. Okay. So from what is the purpose of the long-term scheduler? It will move the process from ready to job queue to the ready queue. Okay. So we can call it as a long-term scheduler. Whereas what is meant by short-term scheduler? See, short-term scheduler means the processes which are moving from ready queue to the CPU. We can call it as a short-term scheduler. Okay. So generally we can call it as a scheduler dispatch also. Okay. Long-term scheduler or short-term scheduler. Okay. Or we can say both are scheduler dispatch. We can say long-term scheduler as scheduler dispatch, or we can say short-term scheduler or scheduler dispatch. Okay. See, what is meant by long-term scheduler or scheduler dispatch in long-term means the processes which are in job queue, it will move. What is the purpose of this one is it will move process from job pool to the ready queue, whereas short term scheduler is it will move from ready queue to the CPU. Okay, so this is two types of schedulers. Okay, then next move on to the of operations of processes. Okay, next topic is what are the various processes operations. Okay, just like if you take one process, the major operations of process are, we can say it is major operations are creation and termination, process creation and as well as process termination. Okay, so here the processes in the system can execute concurrently, and they must be created and deleted dynamically. Okay, first of all, whenever one process is executed by the CPU means first a process must be created, then automatically after completion of the process that must be deleted. Okay, now here what are the various kinds of operations on a process is in deletion, suspension, resumption and cloning. Next one is inter-process communication and synchronization. These are the various kinds of operations. In this one we are going to study completely on process creation and process termination. Okay, see what is meant by process creation. During the course of execution, that is during the execution of a process may create several processes. Okay, if you treat a process is a parent, that means the first process, the creating process is called as parent process, and the new process are called as children of that process. That means if we have a process, from that process we are going to create n number of processes. That is, we can just like as a hierarchy, that is parent to child relationship. Okay, each of this new process may in turn create other process. Okay, that means we can say as we know about the tree structure. Okay, we have one parent process, that parent process will create n number of children's process. Again children process will treat as a parent process, will act as a parent process. Again that parent process will create one more not only one more n number of children process, like that. Okay, here process creation means a process may create any number of children process. Okay, here most of operating systems including Linux or Windows, whatever it may be, identify processes according to unique process identifier, or we can say PID. See what is meant by PID. We are going to represent each and every process by using a number called PID, that is process identifier. See what is meant by process identifier. See, whenever a process is created, if we want to represent that process uniquely, we are going to give one identifier. That identifier is called as process identifier. Okay, in order to represent a process uniquely. See, for example, we have one process, that one process is created n number of children process. Okay, so here n number of children, in order to differentiate that n number of children, we are going to give one identifier to each and every process. That process identifier we can call it as a process ID, or a PID or process identifier. Okay, here if you see the one tree representation of Linux systems, here if you see the here INIT, here PID equal to 1 means here 1 is nothing but it is a one number. That is, in order to differentiate this process uniquely, I am giving one number, that is whatever it may be, 1 or 2 or 3, whatever it may be. Okay, here INIT, it is a one process. Okay, this process may create n number of process. That means here login is one process, here pthread is one process, again SSHD is one process. Here SSHD in the sense it is a Linux representation. For that one only we are going to use this terminology. Okay, here this parent process will create 3 children's process. Okay, here each and every process will have PID. Here PID, here PID is there, here PID is there. Okay, again this login is one more process. Okay, this process may create one more children process. Okay, so this process also will have PID. Again this process will act as a parent process, so again it will create 2 children process. Okay, each and every process will have PIDs. Okay, in order to represent a process uniquely, we are going to use a PID, that is process identifier. Here also this is a one process. This process may also 2 children processes. Okay, so like this is a just like as a tree representation. Okay, so process initially we have one parent process. From that one we are going to create children process. From children process we are going to create again one more process, like that. Okay. Okay, this is the representation of the Linux system. Okay, next one is process termination. See, for after creation of the process, here once process is created, then after completion of its process, definitely we are going to terminate or delete that process. Okay, a process terminates when it finishes execution of its final statements. Ask the operating system to delete by using the exit system call. Here what will happen is, see, a process is terminated. That means a process came to new and ready and running and terminated. After terminating, after a completion of final state, that is terminating state, it will ask the operating system to delete it. That means it will ask the operating system, I have completed my execution, so you can delete me. Why? Because I have completed my operation, that is execution. For that one, the operating system will use one system called exit. Okay, see here, exit is a system call in order to terminate the process by the operating system. Okay, at the next, one more thing, all the resources of the process, including physical and virtual memory or files, are deallocated by the operating system. What will happen is, for example, a process is terminating means, if a process is at that time, if using any IO devices or some files or some physical or virtual memory, okay, whenever process is terminating, it will remove, that means it will deallocate all the operating system deallocate all the resources that was used by the process. Why? Because it completes its execution. While executing that process, while executing the process, that process will use some of the resources. Okay, now, so here what will happen? The process will ask the operating system, my execution is completed, so you can terminate me. So at the same time, what the operating system will do is, it will deallocate all the resources which was allocated by the processor. Okay, so it is nothing but process termination. Okay. So next one more topic is, we are going to talk about the inter-process communication, that is IPC. We can say IPC mechanism. Okay, IPC, or we can say IPC mechanism. Here, what will happen is, a process, generally, whenever a process is executing concurrently in the operating system, there may either independent process or cooperating process. Okay, now generally a processes we can say two types, that is independent or cooperating. See, what is meant by independent? Independent means it will not be dependent on any other, whereas cooperating means one process may depending on another. Okay, a process is independent if it cannot affect or be affected by other process executing in the system. Okay, it means it will not share the data with any other process. Why? Because it is independent. That means it will not depend on other process. Whereas a process is cooperating means it will share the data with other process. That means we can say cooperation is nothing but communication. Generally, a process which are executing in a system may be of two types, that is independent process or cooperating process. Okay. So next one is, there are several reasons for providing an environment that allows a process communication. Generally, if we want to, if we say that a process is cooperating, it means cooperating means it will share some data, or it will communicate with two processes. Cooperating means these two is nothing but these two processes are sharing the information for communication purpose. Okay, here the reasons are, here we have totally four reasons, several reasons, in the sense we have majorly four reasons for providing an environment that allows the process cooperation. Two processes need to cooperate. For that one, we have several reasons why we can say two processes are cooperative. Why? Because of the following purpose. Okay, first one is information sharing, second one is computation speed up, next one is modularity, so next one is convenient. See, what is meant by information sharing? Definitely two processes are cooperating, in the sense there may be several processes which need to access the same file. Okay, there are two processes are there. Okay, so those two processes, we have one file is there. Okay, so those two processors are share the same file. Okay, next one is computation speed up. Okay, so computation speed up means whenever there is a problem, a large problem, we are going to divide the problem in the sense task. Okay, the task into subtask. Okay, all those subtasks are executed by the different processes. Okay, in order to speed up the computation, we are going to use the computation speed. Next one is modularity. Okay, see here modularity means this is regarding the efficient architecture of the operating system. Okay, na? So next one is convenience. Okay, here convenience means single user may be multitasking. Okay, na? Here convenience in the sense if we are using only single process, we are not doing all the works with the single process. Okay, if we are using multiple processes, definitely we are going to get the more work on the different processes. Okay, so next one is whenever we are going to talk about the inter-process communication, what are the two inter-process communication mechanisms? First one is message passing and second one is shared memory. Okay, there are two types of techniques two types of mechanisms in inter-process communication. Okay, first one is message passing, second one is shared memory. Okay, all these two topics already we have studied in the communication. That is one of the feature of the operating system. Whereas we have studied about the operating system features. See, operating system, one of the feature is communication. Okay, see communication. In that communication, how do processes are communicated by using the mechanisms called that message passing and as well as shared memory. These two topics already we have studied. Again, in this inter-process communication also we are going to talk about the message passing as well as shared memory. Here the simple thing, what will happen is, whereas in message passing system there is no common memory, whereas in shared memory system we have one shared memory. Here if you see the representation of the message passing and shared memory, so this is the representation of the message passing. Okay, message passing requires system call for every message transfer and is therefore slower but is simpler to set up and work well across multiple computers. Okay, here whenever a process A wants to request some messages, okay, then what will happen? This process A will get the request for the particular message and it will access. At the same time, process B, it requires some of the messages, it will request the particular messages and it will get. Okay, na? So here there is no common shared memory. In this message passing is generally preferable when the amount of frequency of data is small. Whenever we can say the data is small, whenever we are working with small amount of data, then we are going to use the message passing is the one of the best technique. Whereas in shared memory is faster one. Okay, because here we are not requiring any system calls. Here in the shared memory we require some of the system calls for the transmission of data from process A to process B. Here the thing is, these are the messages. These messages can be used by the process A and process B in the message passing. Okay, here there is no common memory, there is no shared memory. Okay, for example, process A requires some of the messages, they can access. At the same time, process B requires some of the messages, they can access the messages. Whereas in the shared memory it is not like that. Okay, here one memory called as shared memory. Okay, the information whatever shared by the process A and process B are stored in shared memory only. Whenever process A was to interact with the process B, that means process A is communicate with the process B, first of all it will communicate with the shared memory. Okay, for example, process A wants to communicate with process B. For example, process A sends some high message to the process B. What will happen? It will send the message to the shared memory. From the shared memory only process B will access. Why? Because here we have one shared memory in between process A and process B. Okay, so in the shared memory we can say it is faster ones and we do not require any system calls for this shared memory. However, it is more complicated to set up when compared to message passing. The establishment of the shared memory is somewhat difficult. Okay, these two are the two major inter-process communication mechanisms. Okay. Next one is a message. Generally, message passing between two processes may be three types. That is direct or indirect communication. We can say naming. Next one is synchronous or asynchronous communication, or we can say automatic or explicit buffering. Okay. Generally, if we want to send messages, that is, if we want to perform message passing between two processes, we need at least two operations. That is send. That is send is one operation, and second one is receive. See, send is send messages to the receiver, and the receiver will receive message from the sender. Okay. Here we can, if we want to pass messages between to message passing, if we want to perform message passing between two processes, may require three types of communications: direct or indirect, synchronous or asynchronous, or we can say explicit buffering. Okay. Whereas, what is meant by direct communication? In this direct communication, the sender and receiver both knows the identifier of each other. Okay. The sender know the identity of receiver, at the same time receiver will know the identity of the sender. Whereas indirect communication, in this indirect communication, the messages are sent to and received from the mailbox. Here what will happen is, in indirect communication between sender and receiver, we have one mailbox. Okay. For example, sender want to send some information. Here see, send a comma message. That means sender A wants to send some message. First of all, it will send message to the mailbox. Send a message to the mailbox in between the sender and receiver. See, here what will happen is, receiver will receive the message from the mailbox. Okay. This is nothing but indirect communication. So next one is synchronous and asynchronous communication. Okay. So synchronous asynchronous communication, it is purely based on the two methods, that is blocking and non-blocking. Okay. Blocking refers to synchronous, whereas non-blocking refers asynchronous. Here, whereas blocking is concerned, there are two methods: block send and block receive. Whereas non-blocking is concerned, non-block send and non-block receive. Here, block send is nothing but sender process is blocked until the receiver receive the message. Okay. Sender process is blocked until the receiver will receive the message. It is just like as a courier. Okay. Whenever one courier is when a courier came to you or your home, what will happen? The sender means the courier boy. The courier boy will block until you receive that courier. Okay. We can say block send. At the same time, what is meant by block receive? The receiver process is blocked till sender process send the messages. Whereas non-block send, okay, see, in this non-block send, sender process continuously send the message without looking whether the receiver is received or not. Okay, continuously sender will send the messages. The sender will don't know whether the receiver and the receiver will receive the messages or not. Okay. Next one is non-block receive, whereas the receiver continuously receiving the messages without any restrictions from the sender. Okay. So these are the synchronous and asynchronous communications. Okay. It is purely based on the blocking and non-blocking. So blocking is nothing but synchronous, non-blocking is nothing but asynchronous. Whereas blocking, we have block send, block receive. Non-block, we have non-block send and non-block receive. So next one is buffer. Next third one is buffering. So whenever we are performing the message passing between two processes, definitely we need a buffer. See, here buffer is nothing but, buffer we can say it is a one storage area. Okay, if you want to communicate two processes, definitely those two processes want to store some of the data. So for that one, we are going to use the buffering or buffer. So buffering is a storage area which are work in between the communication between two or more devices. Okay, na? Here if we want to communicate two or more processes by using message passing technique, we need one area. That area is called buffering. Generally, we have three types of buffers, that is zero capacity buffer and a bounded capacity buffer and an unbounded capacity buffer. Okay, here zero capacity buffer means the length is 0. That means we can say there is no buffer here. Okay, so the queue has a maximum length of 0. Thus the link cannot have any message waiting. That means here we can say zero capacity buffer means there is no buffer. Or one more type is a bounded capacity. That means we have a finite length of a buffer. That means if you are taking one buffer, 5 bytes or 6 bytes or 7 bytes like that. Okay, in bounded capacity we are going to take the buffer as a limited buffer. We can say it is a limited buffer. Okay, where that depends on the n. Next one is unbounded capacity. So unbounded capacity buffer means here there is no limit for the buffering. Okay, there is no limit for the storage area. Okay, we can store any amount of data in the unbounded capacity. Whereas bounded, we have limited capacity. Whereas zero capacity means there is no buffering. We can say zero capacity means no buffer. Okay, zero capacity means if you are maintaining one buffer with zero capacity means there is no, we are not storing any data in that one. We can say no buffer. Okay, so these three are the three types of buffer, that is zero capacity, bounded capacity and unbounded capacity. Okay, this is regarding inter-process communication. Okay, today in this class we have studied about the majorly process operations. Before that, process scheduling. See what is a process scheduling, what are the schedulers, what are the queues, different types of queues, and after that what are the various operations of process, that is process creation and process termination. So next one is inter-process communication. Okay.